The panel moderator is Mr. Anthony Nelisheri, and I would like to invite the panel and the panel moderator. But before I invite them, I would like to give a brief of the panel moderator as well as the panelist. Mr. Anthony Nelisheri, who will be leading the panel as a moderator, is an educationist with more than 22 years of experience. He is also a certified coach. Anthony Nelisheri is the Chief of School Excellence at Bharti Foundation. He started his career with teaching, and soon his passion for education led him to introduce research-based monitoring indicators, building capacity at SCRT, working with UNICEF. He also worked with European Union, Ministry of HRD, and various Indian and foreign agencies on social projects. He's a graduate from the Institute of Rural Management, Anand. But ask him about any state, he will give you a detailed description of the education system in that state of India. He is also the Global Goodwill Ambassador and has authored a book along with another colleague called The Skills Edge, which focuses on promoting skills approach in school education. Let me also have the honor of inviting and introducing the set of panelists in alphabetical order. Anjali Prakash, thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. She's an educationist with over 32 years of experience. Dr. Anjali Prakash is a founder and chairperson of Learning Links Foundation, a not-for-profit organization working extensively in education and skill development. Anjali is widely recognized in the education ecosystem for several positions of responsibility. She has held academic, government, non-government, and corporate committees. Her accolades are long and listed now Business Leader of the Year 2020. She was recognized as top 50 innovative leaders at World Innovation Congress. She received Red Bangle Award in 2019, and etc. etc. The list is long. Thank you, ma'am, and welcome on board. May I now invite Amrita Patwardhan, and would like to thank Amrita Chu. Amrita heads education at Tata Trust. She has been with Tata Trust for over 15 years and has worked as a teacher, educator, and a researcher before. Amrita leads the educational vertical, which is focused on preschool, school education, and out-of-school children in rural area with a strong presence in around 10 states through direct implementation, partners, and associate organizations. Amrita has done an MPhil in education from Central Institute of Education, Delhi. Tribal education, early literacy, children literature are her special area of interest. Kenas Philip, thank you so much, Kenas, for being on the panel. Kenas is a talent management professional with more than 19 years of experience with varied Indian and multinational organizations. She's been with Group M since 2018, where she leads a vast portfolio consisting of learning, talent welfare, wellness, POSH, CSR, and DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Although she leads various aspects of talent management, her passion lies in deeper work with DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also in counseling space. Hence, she's a valuable partner for various internal committees at Group M, and in which includes Circle of Support, Parent Community, Mental Wellness Champions, etc. This is where she gets the satisfaction of touching lives and making for employees. Manisha, welcome Manisha. Thank you so much. Manisha has 14 years of diverse professional experience. Manisha Singh, she's part of Schneider. Her experience is in CSR, social enterprises, strategy consulting and development sector. Manisha heads CSR for South Asia at Schneider Electricals, wherein the focus on improving lives of people through energy access and skilling in the space of energy. In her past role, she's managed incubation and funding to enterprises, strategy consulting, impact investment, and led various India operations of international social enterprise. She holds an MBA degree from IIM Indore, engineering from NSIT. She also attended executive leadership program from a business school in US. Saharsh David, welcome and thank you. Saharsh is the program manager for sustainability and corporate responsibility, Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India at Ericsson. Sustainability has been key focus throughout his career, and now integrating the sustainable goals in his work, materializing through various projects, has been his contribution. With path-breaking work in CSR, he has been a winner of Economic Times CSR Award, CSR Global Peacock Award, and a couple of other awards too. He's featured on the list of 100 most impactful CSR leaders in the global listing. In his current project to take gender equality agenda ahead in India and drive SDG, he has designed a unique award platform called Sandvik India Gender Awards with grand jury like UNGC, Consulate of Sweden, and Sweden Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much and welcome to this interesting panel. Over to you, Anthony, and welcome to all.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandhya, for that introduction of all our panelists. And thank you, MTC, for this invitation for this particular session. As you would have seen, it's a fantastic panelist we have. It becomes very easy for me to manage this whole moderation because all of them are stalwarts in their own way, whether it be in the CSR space or in the education space. As you would have all heard, Dr. Subhi Shukla in his opening address, he has tried to summarize what are the key challenges in all the key 5 aspects, whether it is with regarding to students who will we teach, what are the type of situations that they are in, how will we teach, and what will we teach, what are the type of national curriculum framework or state curriculum framework that is going to be useful, and the type of situation that we are in, and who is going to teach, how are we preparing our teachers, how are we participating, how are we making them participate, and also within what environment it is. So the economic situation, learning loss, dropout, early childhood education as an issue, lack of nutrition, socio-emotional loss, these are the various challenges that education in general is facing. In this particular session where we are focusing, CSR and education institutions have always used challenges as opportunity. In his words, in the beginning, he said, it is an opportunity, yes, but it is also a necessity in our case. Education sector is one of those sectors have been challenged, just like many other sectors, but education has been a sector in itself. So this particular session, we are trying to see how the lockdown and the COVID, due to COVID, and its long-term impact on education, and is to focus on how the unique strategy, good practices that has been already done by many of the agency, how that can be taken, sustained in the long run so as to have a good quality education in the future. So I would like to open up this particular panel discussion with a question to our panelists. What I'm trying to ask each of you, we will go as a round robin method. Each of you will try to concise and speak for about, say, 3 minutes in the first round. Then we will see how we can speak in 2 minutes in each of the concepts that we are looking at it. So the first point that we would like to see is, what are the key initiatives or good practices that you have implemented during this pandemic for CSR, implementation of CSR, or from the education point of view? So you can even share some of these good practices which you have seen or read or even implemented in your own organization directly or with your partners. So let me open up again in the alphabetical order. Maybe can I start with Amrita? Over to you.
Thank you, Anthony, for this opportunity. I think Subir has also led the canvas very well. So if I reflect on our own way in which we last year adapted, we saw twofold kind of strategies through which we responded. One was using open education resources, digital resources, tools for reaching teachers, students, Anganwadi workers for training, sharing of curated resources. So we saw a shift from many of them being fairly uninducted to use of technology to becoming fairly comfortable with using blended learning. We also piloted the whole process of digital batches, which is teacher professional development in a very small modular kind of manner. And some of those did work very well. We saw also exponential kind of growth in usage of OER resources, but we also very quickly realized that that growth that we are seeing is primarily in urban and semi-urban areas. So when we did very briefly a quick research of outreach that we saw in rural and tribal remote areas where we predominantly have our operations, we very soon decided to go back to what we will say is the strategy in a way of going back to face-to-face community level work with children. And in that, I'm just going to basically speak through these photographs that what we did was create learning spaces in the community. Some of them were on the top of mountains, under the trees, wherever possible, where volunteers from the community worked with children for 2 hours every day, providing that connection of the facilitator, learning material, as well as the peers, which we believe is very integral to true sense of learning. Libraries, learning centers operated in all kinds of constraints and spaces that were available, but community libraries, because of the investment we had done in our field teams and partners in running libraries. So it was not just a process of provision of material, but it is the process which goes behind it. So what we really saw was this kind of a creation of a space in the community, availability of material, and an elder who's available to guide them. And therefore, along with this community level work through a volunteer, engagement with parents also became a very, very critical way in which we reached out to children. Sort of we primarily tried to focus on material, a facilitator, and safe space for learning, which I think really summarized what we have effectively done. And the engagement with parents, I think, definitely went to a different kind of a level. Parents also came forward in a very different way in terms of setting up, learning spaces, in terms of setting up mini libraries in their own homes. So those really were most important ways that we felt really worked in the field. I'll pause here.
Thank you, Amrita, to bring in that aspect of use of community spaces as, in converting them into learning spaces, community libraries. I think that's a very good point of strengthening the education system in the village, using parent engagement when making them safe spaces. I think you have given some good practices that has emerged from Tata Trust experience. Let's go over to Dr. Anjali. Ma'am, what do you think in this particular aspect? With regard to the various good practices, Dr. Anjali, you're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony. It's great to be on this panel, and what I've heard so far resonates very well with the experience that we have had ever since COVID struck. The impact that COVID had on the education ecosystem was, I think, the largest and really challenging. But it gave a huge opportunity for us in education to rethink how we want to engage with our children in this situation. And I think with blue sky thinking, a lot of what we always wanted to do in education, there was an opportunity to do it at this juncture. We actually started with learning and also exploring what the world was doing, and whether it was the framework set by the UN, the World Bank, or McKinsey. We sort of decided to make our own framework so that we could systematically address what COVID was throwing at us, month on month. Also, I'd like to call out, much as we made a framework, it was like need to innovate and sort of build the plane as we fly, because the geographies in India are so varied. There was no one model that fitted everywhere. If we were in a tribal location, we had to address what was available to us in that location. If it was deeply rural, it was what it was. It was semi-urban where the programs were happening, it was different. So I think that agility to innovate was very exciting. So keeping a four-pronged approach, we started with preparing not only our own academic resource people, but whoever else we wanted to engage with. So our people were retrained online on what were the various options available, what were the materials available, how they could engage with community, as Amrita rightly said. It was absolutely wonderful and continues to be wonderful to see parents and community take ownership of a child's learning. Something which we have always wanted has happened due to these COVID times. In lockdown, parents sitting with children, working through worksheets or workbooks or WhatsApp lessons or videos, they suddenly realized that, feeling proud that what their child is doing. And research has always shown involved parent can make a world of difference. Doesn't matter if they are not literate, but having the child ready, giving them a corner in the house was absolutely wonderful. And these are practices we hope to continue. Having said that, technology definitely played a role. Various options and models with technology, asynchronous learning, involving the community youth. The photographs that Amrita shared were wonderful. Using temple spaces, community centers, a large courtyard in a family's house. All these have emerged as good practices. And the realization that you can decouple learning from school. It's not only children go to school, to padhenge, nahi to nahi padhenge. That has really opened up. So these are some of the good practices that we engaged with, top of mind, that I wanted to share. What else? Also assessment in these times, our intention was to keep the continuum of learning going rather than, really do drill, practice, force them to achieve. Because keep been something that we have, followed, no lockdown on learning and having a holistic approach is what we followed.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali, for that. I think you brought in 2-3 key points. Apart from Amrita also stressed on teacher development, engaging parents. You also looked at especially in the aspect of decoupling learning from schooling system. I think while this has been a increase in inequity in terms of access, but I think it has been a leveler in terms of other things, unwanted facility that are required in the school for education. I think it was a kind of a leveler from that point of view. Thank you for bringing that particular point. And I think both the educationists primarily in the panel, Amrita and Dr. Anjali, they have brought in 2-3 key areas on retraining and reskilling, engaging parents as an enabler, as a collaborator, and trying to use the available resources for making, as per the context, whether it is rural or urban, to look at it. Now let us move to Kainas. I would like to welcome you into this discussion, how this key initiative from a CSR point of view, the good practices that has happened in the last few months during this lockdown.
Sure. So I think thanks a lot, Anthony, and I really appreciate what Dr. Anjali and Amrita shared so far, and also quite resonate with what Subir shared to start with. In our case, it's a bit different. I feel that as an organization and being CSR partners with high-tech college, when I say high-tech, we mean college which kind of, partners or is a government institute, but at the same time teaches students on degrees. We see the fundamental change is not in the learning, but the learning process. The way the entire curriculum is taught, to the way that the assignments are done, to the way that the guidance is given to students now, and even to a lot of extent, the entire evaluation process. And all of this, due to the pandemic, being done remotely, all of this comes with its own set of challenges. So although we do have a lot of students, from, I would say, middle class backgrounds coming in, but at the same time, these colleges also have students who can come from the remote areas, who cannot at times access or do not have clear access to the internet, etc. So some of the key initiatives that I think we have, come up with in this space is providing laptops to students who cannot afford buying laptops for themselves, purchasing data cards. And I would not only say that we have done so, it's even the college alumni get together and, fund the colleges for doing all of this. At the same time, I feel, instead of going in for short time or short term partnerships with various organizations or various NGOs or, colleges, we took a conscious decision this year to go into a more long-term relationship with the college and the institute that we've tied up with. And we've tied up with them, I think, at the right time, because what we are doing with them is we are helping them build an AI lab, an artificial intelligence and a machine learning lab, right from the scratch. So I think this was the right time for us to get into this kind of an initiative, because everything is moving towards AI now. And like the way even Subir said earlier, learning has now become more of a collaboration rather than just a competition. So even we realized that this year, when we tied up with this institute, we kind of were not only CSR partners in terms of giving CSR funds, but we took it a step ahead. We were partners in the true sense. So we collaborated from the beginning with the institute, be it on submitting plans for the entire AI lab, from slab to slab, what kind of machines would be brought in, what kind of infrastructure would be required, to what kind of reports will be submitted, what are the duration of these reports. We have been also taking regular updates with them. And of course, the most important thing that we all need to get on board with is that nothing goes as per plan, thanks to the pandemic, right? Because we have to be, agile. We have to think on our feet. We have to be ready for different things coming in and just playing up and, changing course if required. So I think these are some of the traits that both the CSR Institute that we've tied up with, as well as us, have learned from each other as time has gone by. And it brings me great pleasure and a lot of pride to say that this is the kind of CSR partnership that there should be between the corporates and the education sector. So yeah, that's my 2 bits for now.
So I think one of the common thread that has happened, that has been spoken in the last 3 speakers, is how the change and how organizations, whether it is educational institutions or even for that matter CSR agencies, have changed to the challenges, modified, reinvented, as the word that you use, agility, and even Dr. Anjali was using the word agility to innovate. So that aspect of innovation is something which is coming out very clearly in this panel so far. Let's go over to Manisha and see how, from their perspective, how things have been done in the form of good practices. Over to you, Manisha. You're on mute, Manisha. Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony. So definitely, last 2 years have been very interesting years in terms, like, we were completely taken off guard as far as our education program is concerned. So we have a flagship program, we call it Conserve My Planet, and it's a focused program towards energy and environment conservation. And as the name suggests, it was completely offline and would be done, in the schools and practical settings. So when the COVID situation arrived, it's a short-term engagement in a year. So we thought, okay, let's wait for some time and maybe we'll move it towards the end of the year instead of the middle of the year when we do it. However, when we saw that this pandemic is here to stay, we really had to think quickly, change our strategy. And so in our case, fortunately, so the program, because of the nature of the program, we were at that time conducting it, mostly in the city-based schools, because, I think the need for energy and environment conservation, education is equally high in an urban setting. So, moving on to the digital platform was not much difficult. We quickly, changed, created a digital version of the curriculum. And so dissemination of information was not a challenge. At the same time, so however, we program that it was about environment and energy. How do we do things online? Like, yeah, like experiments were now being seen by students instead of being done practically. So that was the challenge. So we had to make a lot of changes in the way we do this teaching. Like from we had to change activities from, say, tree plantation to energy and waste audit in schools, to something like creating a kitchen garden in your home, or having painting competitions around environment. So yeah, a lot of, so it's been a mixed experience. The good part has been that we realize the importance and power of digital education, variety and volume and velocity of data available. So, however, the challenge was that how do we implement this program in rural areas, which is what we had, recently announced that, we'll be taking this program to rural areas. But, there the access to technology and, in terms of devices and internet remains. So that's the challenge that, we have to solve in the coming years. That how to bring about that change in rural areas.
Thank you, Manisha, for reiterating some of the challenges that are being faced and how you have again also changed to the situation. Like all of us, all of us were taken off guard, and how you have also moved in trying to not only going into the urban setting, also how you are getting into the rural areas. I think that's one of the good things that has happened. The reach of work has been much easier. Like having a conference or a roundtable discussion, it would have been in a face-to-face situation. It may be possible only with 30 or 40 people maximum. But we have, like in the webinar, more than 120 people with us. So these are some of the things that has, while challenges are there, these are some of the things that has also given us an opportunity. Let's go over to Sahaj and see how he is looking at it and his organization is looking at this lockdown impact. Over to you, Sahaj.
Sure. Thank you very much, Anthony, and it's a pleasure to be here on the panelist. Let me also come up front and say that I'm not an educationist, although I come from an education family. Let me introduce Ericsson first to give you a context that what we are doing basically. So what we believe is that we are empowering intelligent, sustainable, and connected world. And for you guys, from an education perspective, the word connected world should stay. And essentially, from a business point of view, we want to be responsible business, environmental sustainability. And our third major focus on sustainability is to look at digital inclusion. And that's where we are more committed to markets across the globe. And we're trying to create products and services where we can advocate accessibility and affordability of communication infrastructures and offering around it so that there is a sustainable economic growth. Under this, what we really want to do or what we highlight is one is that our commitment, but also try and create a portfolio where social and financial inclusion can be put, advocacy is created for digital inclusion, and most importantly, try and have specific programs across the globe to ensure that we achieve digital inclusion. And these are public-private partnership programs, and one such is our overarching program called Connect to Learn. Connect to Learn is Ericsson's flagship education program. It's a non-profit initiative with a purpose to empower children, youth around the globe, and through the power of technology. The aim of the program is to provide access to quality education for all, and we believe that technology plays an important role in this mission. Through Connect to Learn, Ericsson also tries to advocate inclusiveness, equity, and use of technology for education, and how when trying to see how we can bridge the gap. And that's where our focus in India is also. And as such, what we do is we deploy these programs across different geographies wherever we are operating. And we have been doing this for about 10 years with a special focus on gender. Uh, Coming back on this pandemic, and as you guys have already said, that this has been, and the impact has been manifold, so to say. So, of course, it is growing the digital divide in the world. There is lack of internet, which has prevented most vulnerable children across the globe, where they are not able to access remote learning. And because of the school closure, it's becoming more and more difficult for them to continue their education. And what we are trying to do is trying to create platforms where connectivity and digital learning can be increased, and we ensure that learning is never stopped. So our platform is basically is like the future work for opportunity, and consequently, those without internet will have access to good education, jobs, and opportunities. So that's where we are essentially working. We also are rapidly adapting to a lot of global realities, global geographic realities, so to say, and then creating our Connect to Learn programs across the globe. Right now, we are operating in over 35 countries. This is a global partnership with UNICEF, and what we try and do is map school and connect mapping the school and connecting them, and it's a joint effort. It's mainly known as Giga initiative, and you can find a lot of information about that across this thing. Then yeah, so that's the context where we are coming from, and in this so our connection with education is more from making it more connected, available, and I'll add more points in my second part of it, but right now this is where we are operating from. Thank you.
All right, thanks Saharsh for that point bringing in. I can see when Kainas also spoke, so the CSR agencies have now risen to the occasion in trying to improve accessibility of digital age, and you have brought about wherein getting that sustainable growth, making accessibility and affordability, not just doling out things, but how accessible digital inclusion for the purpose of digital inclusion. So in the panel discussion so far, all the panelists have talked about what are the various good practices that they have been following in their own realm of expertise in their areas. I would like to also request all the participants, in case if you have any questions, please feel free to put in the chats. We will bring it to the panelists at the appropriate time. So we will continue further. And the second part is a lot of good practices that have been shared by all of you. But how do you think that this continuity education can be achieved even in the long run? Now, as the research or the reports say, the normalcy as we knew, it may not be normal anymore, as it was clear from Dr. Subir's discussion as well. It's not going to be the same after this. So how are we going to sustain the so-called education that we knew in terms of skill development? The point that he was speaking of, outcomes. So the education had set outcomes there. The process might have changed. As all of you have, as some of you have already said, learning has decoupled from schooling system. So who knows, the hybrid school model that many people speak about, the blended learning that is speaking about. But how are we going to sustain this transformation, innovation that has happened? So let's start with, in the reverse order. Saharsh, over to you.
Sure. So
So maybe we can limit to 2 minutes so that we can have a quicker round. Yeah.
Yes. So see, one of the biggest challenge which I see in digitalization and virtual learning is right now we are not in the capacity to achieve it. Basically, how I see is India is one of the largest education system provider. We have very high number of people who don't have access to internet. So forget about going to the skills part, and which I will touch. But we are already struggling when it comes to bringing in digital inclusion, and my thought is very clear, and we're going to do a study on that as well. So first thing which I worry about for India when it comes to education and skilling is there is a growing digital divide within cities, urban, rural, private, government schools. And what I would suggest is, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So what my suggestion is, one thing for sure is to try and work on giving access, network availability, devices, and most importantly, affordability. So maybe something like a national program is required to first overcome this. Then second point, which Subir has very nicely articulated, is there is a necessity to reinvent the education. So there are lots of hybrid models which we need to look at. The role of teacher is changing, education resources are changing, and the more worrisome part is with this gap, the world is not the same. Now, what we'll get is a very different requirement, and now society has personally understand it. So far from when we had not hit the pandemic, we were very gung-ho about, say, big data, artificial intelligence, and how the world will be more interconnected with 5G, and that was like a big gung-ho, which in my understanding will continue to be. But there is also a personal impact the society is facing, and that's where the jobs is going to change. The medical care has become a very prime job, and I'm talking about the spectrum of medical care.
Yeah.
The whole sustainable business model. So any business which has a reduced negative impact will be more put forward, or the society has learned it personally that anything we should do should have should reduce the negative impact on the environment or the society or the finances. So that's something big. And third thing, which I think my last point in this is we might just be an audience to that. We don't know how the society is going to change in next few years, but I believe we will be an audience to the creativity which will come out now. It is absolutely different. The child has been in a room for 2 years. They have missed out on a lot of 1-2 months of social connect. There will be new forms of future skills which will come. That's what I believe, and I think I am an audience to it. So
yeah. So thank you, Sahash, for bringing out that point of, you should have a national program for increasing access and networking in an affordable way, so that we can reinvent the education and also increase the digital inclusion, because that is use of technology is here to stay. Over to Manisha. What is your point of view? Thank you, Sahash. Manisha, over to you.
Thank you, Anthony. So yeah, I think there are a lot of learnings, there are a lot of things we would need to do for this change to be sustained. So this is, very well established that digital learning or skilling is here to stay. So there is a need to, like Saharsh said, that there is a need to bridge the digital divide. And probably because of that, last year we announced a program where we will be setting up digital classrooms in 100 schools in rural and semi-urban areas. And also we realized that, it not just we need to bridge the digital divide between rural and urban areas, but also it needs to be accelerated. So where, earlier we were planning to do this over 4 years, and seeing the situation, we have, kind of accelerated it, and we're planning to complete it in next 1.5 years time. So that's one point that is necessary. Another point I would want to mention here is that, for a country like India, there are other things also that we would need to tackle. For example, the acceptability acceptability and access of technology access to the girl children, especially in the rural areas. So and this is like all the more imminent and necessary, given the scenario. However,
Yeah.
there are questions as well that not all the answers are there. For example, like how do we sustain digital learning in the places where children are sent to schools because they get meals over there? How do we continue digital education where students are especially for below poverty line families, where students are dependent on state for uh, study material.
Okay.
So there are a lot of questions unanswered as well.
Thank you, Manisha, for bringing those questions that needs to be answered. Yes, we need to bridge the digital divide and need to accelerate the efforts. Yes, this lockdown has accelerated the efforts of in accepting the technology for digital learning. However, I think digital learning while ensuring nutrition, I think that's a good point. Because if you have to go through only digital, how are we going to ensure the nutrition for which many of the students were depending on those midday meal systems? So that's a very good point that is coming. Let's go to Kainas. Kainas, over to you.
Sure, thanks, Anthony. So again, I think we have been, or rather, I wouldn't say we are lucky, but we have made a conscious effort of being in the right place at the right time. And setting up an AI lab at this point in time where I think everyone's moving towards digital and technology is the right step to have been taken. Luckily for us, the college that we've tied up with has been trying to go online for quite a few years now. And due to the pandemic, it has just got accelerated. So they went completely online. And because of the robust IT infrastructure that they had, they launched online degree programs, full-fledged MTech programs, online programs on AI, ECE, and data science. Also, they've completely moved from their physical environment to online classes, be it online exams, even research interviews have completely taken over the academic operations now. And because of this robust IT networking infrastructure that they had and the cloud infrastructure that they had, it became easier for them. But at the same time, I feel, and of course, it becomes easier for them to be sustained at this point in time, at the same time, scale up at this point in time. But again, bringing back the point that the same institutes also have students who come from not so well connected regions and who have faced challenges in the pandemic. So, or during the pandemic. So other than, just providing them with data cards and, laptops, it's been a challenge, and we've kind of, seen the change happening and helping them overcome this challenge is also required at this point in time. And I think, somewhere down the line, these are aspects on which significant investments will be required in the future as well.
Thank you for bringing that point of significant investment to make robust IT infrastructure, especially in the rural area where it is required, so that physical to online environment that has been already made a shift that can be continued and sustained. Dr. Anjali, over to you. What's your opinion on this?
Anthony, all the points made so far are valid. Getting the infrastructure, the technology, the internet is much needed. However, for us, I think implementing agencies who are actually working on the ground with children, we can't waste a child's day, a single day in a child's life waiting for any of that. It's needed. We know the value of it. But for us, our models that we implement today just take in the ground reality. So I think the models that we've evolved during COVID times, which are based on reality on the ground. So even if it is our worksheets, they have QR codes. So people who have access can go beyond, but people who don't, children who don't, can actually do the worksheet, take a photograph, send it on a WhatsApp, or physically the community volunteer collects it. So these kind of blended with technology models, asynchronous learning would be ways to go, so that for a child, there's a continuity in their learning. And definitely, I've been on many consultative groups where we are really pitching that every child should have access to some form of technology, connectivity, etc. So yeah, so that was one. And also to continue the practice of empowering community, reskilling our teachers, up-leveling our resource people in our organizations is also something that would be much needed in the long-term sustainability of all of this. So these were two things that I would, like to bring to the table.
Thank you. Coming from that, child at the center, because you were talking about children cannot wait. Yes, while all this infrastructure is important, it is a little bit of long-term measure. So you have given a lot of solutions in terms of short-term measures. Now you are bringing me that particular caption that used to be always there in a global scenario, whether it is Save the Children or UNICEF, no child left behind. Children cannot wait. Yes,
Exactly.
we cannot wait till technology comes, so we have to go to the children with maybe with worksheet or QR coded. So those can access, they can access it. So thank you for bringing that point. I think that's something which all the policymakers and everyone, whether it is CSR, everyone should understand. Children cannot wait till all technology comes in place.
They've already lost. They've already been hit by the pandemic. It's been terrible for them, cooped up in the house. I mean, socially, emotionally, the impact is huge. Nutritionally,
So the socio-emotional loss that they have, apart from the learning loss that everybody talks about, it's a completely a trauma from a child's perspective, even from a teacher's perspective. It has been very difficult for them as well. So thank you for bringing that particular point of empowering community. We need to have those in place, reskilling our own teachers. Yes, we need teachers to support. They have done a yeoman service in the last 1.5 years. Completely moving to online, where many of them are not comfortable. Let's get the opinion of Amrita as well before we go into the next point of discussion. Amrita, over to you on this.
Yeah, Anthony, just 2-3 points. I'll not repeat what has already been talked about, the digital divide and the difference, the variation that we have. So I really want to, for me personally, I felt pandemic has really highlighted the inequity in education, which was already there, and it has further gotten kind of exasperated. And hence we also need to, I think, understand and reflect on, when you have asked us about reflecting on how do we ensure continuity in education and the sustenance of good practices. So what is worth sustaining? Because there are a lot of bad practices which have also been scaled up in a way. So a system which is, typically prone and has been doing a lot of rote learning, you can use technology to multiply that as well. So I think just because it is digital and just because it is online doesn't make it any good. So some of the basic principles of what is good education, which some of it even Subir did talk about and highlighted in his opening remarks, I think those really remain unchanged, whether it is online or offline. So the engagement of a child, whether the content is meaningful, it is contextual, whether it is something that the child is able to apply in his or her context, whether there is that kind of a caring and a competent adult to guide the child. I think some of those principles really remain unchanged, and that was also a great reminder through the pandemic, I would say, because both through online and offline, you can do both meaningful as well as totally meaningless teaching learning. And we have seen, I think, examples of both of that, I feel. So we need to remember that. The other point that I briefly wanted to mention also was that along with the learning loss, along with the sort of education, typically we look at learning, we, I think, have been very much reminded during the pandemic of the overall well-being of the child. We have a government announcing approximately 30,000 children who have lost one or both parents. So from the very survival onwards to the safety, to socio-emotional well-being of the child, nutrition of the child, health of the child, I think all of those components, each of us may or may not be able to tackle all of this, but when we are talking about the child, let's not only isolate learning as though that can be,
Bold.
sorry.
Yeah.
और एक cream of tartar.
Nancy, can you mute?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to sort of be mindful that learning will happen only along with some of these enablers of safe spaces, of health, nutrition, and going alongside. So those were the 2 points I thought wanted to.
I think, Amrita, you brought a wonderful point. I think not too many of us, practice, though we preach on that aspect. Maybe it's high time to stop the bad practices. Sometimes we carry along with a lot of bag and baggage, saying that it has been going on in the past. I think it's a very good opportunity. While scaling up the good practices, we need to also see what should not be scaled up or what should not be continued. I think apart from learning as a focus, we need to focus on socio-emotional well-being and nutrition, and all those aspects is something which I think all of us, whether it is from a CSR point of view, in terms of getting the right funding and even strategic direction for it, and from an implementation point of view, all of us needs to focus on this aspect. This is a high time to reinvent not only education, reinvent also our way of working. So with that, I think we need to, it's almost, I can see the time already ticking to almost 45 minutes to 50 minutes. Now, I'm not going to go in order. Are there any other point that any of you would like to stress? Maybe we can just come in at this time before we try to conclude the panel discussion. Anyone would like to stress any point that they think it has not come in? Yes, Dr. Anjali, over to you.
So just one more point, children with special needs is a area that everyone needs to think about in this new situation that we are. How many of them have we been able to include in our models and solutions? So that was one thing which I wanted to call out.
Very true. Children with special needs, but only thing is, apart from in the usual understanding, I would say even narrow understanding of children with disability as children with special needs, I think now that particular umbrella would have grown much wider. And earlier, I think Manisha also was, speaking about the gender part of it, how girls are some areas, I'm not saying everywhere it is left out, in terms of accessibility. Some reports we have seen, they are getting married off early. So all these things, I think, it's very important. Children with needs, special needs, apart from children with disability, they must be suffering much more. But I think that children with needs have widened their horizon at this time. Thank you, Dr. Anjali, for bringing that point. Anybody else would like to go in for any other point you think it's not come? Yes, Amrita, you are unmuted.
Just a very small point, but I think an important point has been the reminder that learning is effectively a social process, and technology can enable interactivity, but in a lot of places we have also seen technology again being used to promote rote learning because it's a one-way kind of a traffic. So I think the basics of education, basic principles of what is learning and what is good teaching learning, I think to a large extent remain unchanged, I feel. If we focus on those, then whatever is the right solution, in some places the solution may be digital and online, in some places it may be physical, in some place it may be something else. I think so really for me, the reminder has been that you focus on the basic principles of teaching learning.
Very true. Very true. Good, very good point. Though we brought it up the last, we have talked about technology, and technology is here to stay. But thank you for bringing that point. Technology has to enable education, not the other way. Not the other way. So all the process, academic process, whether it is in a teaching learning process, assessment, or when you are looking at the skilling, it should enable education and it should not replace the social process that are there in the education. Thank you, Amrita, for bringing that point. Any other kindness would like to say any other closing points from your side?
No, just reiterate the girl student point which Manisha raised, which you also said, because in all the communities that we have worked, early child marriage, pregnancy, violence, abuse has increased. So whatever needs to be done for them is, less and is important to be done. So yeah,
very true. Yes, we need to ensure when we say no children, especially with a specific focus to our girl children. Very true. Yeah, any closing remarks from kindness?
No, I'm good, Anthony. I think I completely agree with all the speakers today. And yes, education is extremely important, and that's the whole reason why we all are here today. And all that we are hoping is that the kind of infrastructure that we want to build will better the education for the future generations. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kainas. Manisha, any of your closing remarks? 30 seconds. I think we have lost Manisha.
Yeah, I think most of the important topics have already been covered. I think I would just close with saying that, we will have to quickly find ways to make digital learning more or bring in human element in digital learning, making it maybe by the introduction of artificial intelligence, usage of augmented reality, virtual reality, and probably we'll have to be quick adopters towards this technology. I mean, so that's what I would like to say.
Yep. Thank you, Manisha, for bringing that. We need that human element in our technology, and reiterating technology has to enable education, and we need to be quick adapters. I think that is one skill now all of us needs to be good at: adaptability, resilience. Otherwise, if those who have these skills, no pandemic can destroy the person. Saharsh, over to you for that closing remarks.
In fact, most of the point is covered, and I quite agree with them what Manisha has been saying. But one particular point what Amrita mentioned, that the technology so technology is nothing but a platform, and how we use it is more on the basic principles of teaching, or the how do I say, the idare continues to be the same. The pillars has to be the same for it. And having said that, just one more point, so I've been a lecturer and I come from a teaching family. I'm still teaching till last summer. I've been thinking about this, and I just want to leave you all with thought that can we not think about transforming our assessing system, which can be very different, not just on rote learning and giving marks on it, but transform it in such a way that everybody gets a opportunity to give the exam in a unique way, of course using big data, artificial intelligence, everything, and then nothing stops basically. Like I'm concerned because the 10th and the 12th exams were not taken, and if you look at it from a technology perspective, it was very simple to be taken. It's just that the will was not there to put in that infrastructure. So those kinds of things are the real issues of education in coming few years, where we will be participating.
Thank you, Saharsh, for bringing that point again with regard to even the other part of academics, that is assessment part of it, which is very important. Yes, many of our students of class 10 and class 12 have lost out on that. And I think just to conclude from my side, before I invite Dr. Subir to give his closing remarks in another 2 to 3 minutes, I think a lot of good practices have come from all of you, whether it is engaging the community spaces, engaging the community in general with a specific to parents, reskilling and retraining the teachers and other resources that we have. Use of community spaces is something which many of you have brought about. And from a CSR point of view, I think they also stressed on how digital inclusion that needs to take focus. The provision of laptops or data package is very important, but at the same time, if you don't have that infrastructure, IT infrastructure in the interiors, the digital inclusion cannot be a reality in the future. And the point that Dr. Anjali was also focusing, we cannot wait till all these things are ideal. We need to move on with the short-term measures, because no children can be left behind, and children cannot wait. So with this, I would like to invite Dr. Subir again, just to give his concluding thoughts. Dr. Subir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Very difficult to conclude so many different things. I'll just stick to a few critical principles that came up. Everybody, yes, was caught off guard. but I think, everybody displayed, let's call it adaptive learning. It's very clear that inequity is increased, and I think that's been the big area of concern. And at the same time, because COVID removed a number of earlier restrictions, like you didn't all have to be in the same place to learn, for example. Therefore, we could, adapt and try out a vast range of options, which would not have been thought about before. And therefore, the question arises that should we not continue with many of those changes that we have made? So that's one. The other thing is about, our whole understanding of technology is becoming far more nuanced than before, it seems. Earlier, we had a relatively easy understanding that it was a solution to a lot of things, but we have realized its limitations, and even where it is full, where access is fully there, even then, what are the limitations? And then, I know it is very silly, but, everybody thought of technology as a panacea, not realizing that if I give a bad lecture to 50 people and with technology I can give to 50,000 people, that's not an improvement. So I think the point that Amrita has been raising about, what is good education and how technology has to really respond to it, that is coming up. I think the idea of, but what technology does and all these efforts do is this idea of decoupling learning from school. That is a very critical thing. So let's talk of a childhood of learning rather than a school where children learn alone. And that gives a different focus to what we are doing in a very different way, because it brings in communities, it brings in collaborations, and most importantly, it brings in agility, which was a concept we never thought of using much in education earlier. Education was very staid and stable. It was like a truck, but now it has to be like a racing horse or something. I don't know, very agile. I think the idea of a national program is extremely important, but it has to be nuanced and it's to be defined by all the kind of concerns that have been raised here, particularly of equity, bringing in girls, children with special needs, and not forgetting that technology is not the answer to everything that children need, especially their social needs, nutritional needs, children's special needs. All of those are really very critical thing. So this is an opportunity to really reinvent, as has been said, a different way of blending. But I think we also need to shed a lot of things that we have had. Getting rid of some of the baggage is very, very, very critical. So I really like the point that somebody made, I think Serge did, that those companies that reduce their negative impact are the ones that are going to be valued more. I think any teacher, any school also, if analyzes what negative impact it could, they or he or she could have, and that's what we need to really incentivize in order to make change happen as well. And the potential of children really is waiting to be unleashed. Overall, what has emerged is that the highlighting the social process, bringing in the human element in the technology, highlighting the overall well-being of the child, moving towards a caring and what I would call a compassionate society and a compassionate educational system. And to borrow another term, we're really talking about reinventing in such a way that we are a connected system, not just connected by technology, but connected human to human. And therefore, we really respond to all the needs of children. So these are some of the big things. I wish that we could put together a quick repository of all the different efforts, because whoever is now setting out to do will gain a lot from this. Thanks so much to everyone. I really learned a lot from all of you. Thank you so much.